Welcome to this Simplebim product webinar on how to maximize your BIM value with Simplebim software. I'm Jarmo Kuusinen, Head of Partnerships at DataCubist, and I'll be your host today. Here with me is Jiri Hietanen, co-founder and CEO of DataCubist, which is the company behind the Simplebim software. Jiri is architect by training and internationally recognized IFC specialist with like two decades of experience on the open BIM world. So soon he will be taking the floor and explain us how to use Simplebim to take most out of your IFC models. Okay, so before jumping into actual presentation, maybe a few words about the company. DataCubist is a Finnish software vendor established in 2009 by Jiri Hietanen and Sakari Lehtinen. We aim at solving data exchange problems in construction industry. The main product of DataCubist is the Simplebim app, which we are talking about today. Simplebim has over 5,000 professional users in 32 countries. It is sold by 11 resellers in 16 countries, and just to briefly to mention, here's the list of Simplebim resellers. You can always reach out to them for more information about the product. Okay, that's all from my side. Next, it's Jiri's turn, and he will take the floor and walk you through the Simplebim software benefits and its usage. So Jiri, the stage is yours.
So how to maximize BIM value with Simplebim? That's the big question. And first you have to understand, of course, what is Simplebim? What is the idea behind Simplebim? And this is the main picture that tells you this idea. And when you use IFC data, then you have the question of what do I need? So in order to do all the things I want to do with IFC, what is the information in the IFC I need? How does it have to be structured? So for example, cost, quantities, procurement, scheduling, construction site, whatever, you always need something. And then on the other side is what you get from the designers, architects, structural engineers, mechanical engineers, and so on. And the thing is that what you need is not what you get. So how do you solve the issue? How do you get from what you get to what you need? And here the answer is normalization. And this is what Simplebim is for. So you can see in the picture there are this data coming in from one door and then coming out another door, and they are organized and reliable and relevant information. And the solution in between is Simplebim. So you import IFC, you are doing things to the IFC model, and then you export a better IFC. And when you go about realizing this approach, there are 3 steps that you would take. So first is to normalize the models manually using Simplebim. So this means that you open the Simplebim application, you import the model, you look at the model in the user interface of Simplebim, and then you use the many tools in Simplebim for doing the normalization work. And when you have this working, then you can start automating the same thing with templates. So you don't have to, drag and drop, click, type, do all these things all the time, but you can create templates that help you automate these operations. And then when this is working, you would jump to Simplebim scripts. And Simplebim scripts are something where you tell the script, import this model, apply this template to the model, export the result into a new IFC file. And you never open Simplebim, you never see the 3D, it just happens automatically in the background. So today I'm going to show you all 3 steps. And of course, it's a lot to show in half an hour. So this is scratching the surface, but hopefully at the end you get an idea of how you can get the maximum benefit out of your BIM using this approach. So what are the skills you need for doing all this normalization work in Simplebim? First of all, when you work with the model, then you need to be able to import models. In Simplebim, you can merge models so that you can combine architect's model with structural model, for example, or take the architectural spaces in your MAP model, all kinds of merge operations. And then the alignment means that if the coordinates of the different models don't match, you can easily get the models to be nicely on top of each other. So you work on the model and you create the model that you want then to further manipulate. Then the next step is to create object selections. So you have to be able to select a subset of the model that you need for something. Let's say you are calculating the quantities for interior walls. So your object selection would be all the interior walls in the model. And there are a lot of ways, a lot of scenarios, a lot of alternatives how to create selections. So in Simplebim, you need to master the tools needed for creating different selections. And then when you have your selection, you can use the selection in an operation. Let's say you wanted to export a model that contains only, for example, the second floor of the building. You want that second floor in a separate IFC file. So your selection would be select all the objects on the second floor, and the operation would be export this selection into a new IFC file. And the BIM sheet is about connecting the model to Excel. You can colorize the model, you can edit property values, enrich properties, edit the model structure, site, building story, and so on, and transform coordinates and so on. But every time you perform an operation, you need to say what is, which objects does this operation apply to? Which objects do I want to colorize? Which objects do I want to see in Excel, and so on. So you always need the selection for the operation. And this is step 1 of what I showed earlier. So this is what you do in the Simplebim user interface. And to use the Simplebim user interface, you need to master then, how to navigate the 3D drag and drop workspaces and so on. Things that you need to know when you are using the Simplebim user interface. Then when you go into step 2 with the template, then it's quite familiar, because in the template you define operations that apply to certain objects. So you could make a template that selects all objects on the second floor, and then the operation would be to include only the objects on the second floor. So you would automate the things that you did in step 1 using the templates. And then the step 3 is the scripts. And scripts work then across multiple models. So with the script, you can import models, you can do these merge operations, you can do these align operations, and then you can apply templates, run tools, and export to a new IFC file. So for example, if we take our example with the second floor, Then you would import the original model. Then you would apply a template that selects all the objects on the second floor and includes only those objects. And then in the script you would export, and the result would be a new IFC file containing only the objects in this one floor. But this is the overall picture. This is the kind of, and also the roadmap of how you progress as a Simplebim user to get the most benefits out of your BIM. So enough theory. We can jump into the demo. And first, step 1, normalizing using the Simplebim user interface. How does that work? Then normalizing with the template, and then normalize using with the script. And then in the end, when we've done all this, I'll open the normalized model, and you can see how the normalized model is vastly superior to the original model that we started with. So the end, you see the value of all this. So I'll jump to Simplebim application. And really, this is just scratching the surface of all the things you can do, but hopefully you get the picture of what kind of things you can do. So first we import an IFC model. So I can import it from here. I can import it from here or from here. This is my personal favorite. So I'll just import the sample model for this webinar. And you can import IFC 2x3 models and IFC 4 models. And when you work with them in Simplebim, they are pretty much equal. So you don't have to care about which version you are working with. Okay, so now the model loaded in Simplebim. And as you can see, we have the 3D, and we can rotate normally with the left mouse button. We can make selections, and we can pan and so on. It might be that the Teams is not always keeping up with all this, what's happening on my screen. But if you need to know what happens, if you forget about how to navigate, then we have this icon here in the lower right-hand corner, which is then giving you a good quick help about how to use the mouse, how do you use the keyboard, and what are the shortcut keys for the different operations. So the basic way to make a selection, for example, here I have a roof slab selected in 3D. I just right-click on the roof slab. It makes a selection, and I drag and drop it over here into the included bucket. So it's over here now. And this means that if I now make an IFC export, the export will only contain this one roof slab. So it's pretty straightforward idea. I can make selections in many different ways. For example, if I wanted to include all the walls, I could take them from here from the object palette and drag and drop all the walls over here into the included palette. And now I have all the walls included. And this is also quite nice with the quick select. I just showed you the, the example was that if you want all the objects on the second floor, so I just select building story from here, and with the mouse I go over an object on the second, well, this time on the first floor, and it selects all the other objects from the first floor. And then I can just drag and drop this here and include all the objects from the first floor. So you see the idea. You make a selection and then you make an operation. I could, for example, select here this building story and tell these, make the operation to make them green and half transparent So now all the objects on the roof are green and half transparent. And if you make a mistake, you just undo, and everything is fine. So this is basic stuff in Simplebim. Sometimes you need to also work with the properties. So for this one, I jump over into our property editor. And now I want to edit the properties of, for example, the walls. And I want to see the construction type of the walls. And this is pretty common. I realize, well, these construction types aren't really, these wall types aren't really that good. It's actually the thickness of the wall that is shown over here. But I can see here there is, in the name property, we have some actual wall types. So I just take the name, drag and drop it over here and say copy. And now when I export, these are my wall types. So the data was in the model, but just in the wrong place. Well, with Simplebim, you just move it into the right place. And there's also some differently spelled, like EX1. I just drag and drop the incorrect one on top of the correct one and clean up values. Okay, and now when I export, I have a very clean list of wall types in the exported IFC. So this is, how to do things manually. But then the next step is to automate, to use the templates. So I'll jump into Excel. Our templates are, Excel files that follow a certain pattern, certain format that we defined. And for example, in this template, we are doing something very, very typical. We are adding a new property set into the model with properties that we define ourselves. So this is, and then we add these properties to the different objects, in this case, walls and spaces. This is our example. And then we have rules for copying data from the properties that you find originally in the model into the properties that we defined ourselves. And then we define this include, exclude, what I showed with drag and drop. As we can define here, we want to include just our properties. We are setting up some validation rules and so on. So this is what a template looks like. So I close this template and I reopen this model. And now, instead of doing these things manually in the user interface, drag and drop, click type, I just apply this template to this model. So I take our template file here, this automation template, and I drag and drop it here on top of the 3D. It applies the template. And you can see it automatically did this include, exclude things. It also set up some validation rules, for example, for spaces. And we can see, for example, in the space names, these are okay. This one here is not okay. So let's see. It's just break. We change it. And now the space name passed the validation because we are using space names that we defined in the template as allowed space names. Yeah. So basically, the same things you can do in the user interface, plus some other nice things like this validation. You can encode in a template and then just apply the template to all of your different models for normalizing them. But then we jump to the last step of the process, which is the script. So I'm closing Simplebim the desktop view of Simplebim. And here we have our script, Simplebim script, SBS. So I open that one with Notepad. It's pretty simple. And you can almost read, what this script is doing. So it imports an IFC file. It merges locations to it. It splits the model based on locations, in this case, construction sections. It applies the same template that we just looked at, and then it exports the result into a new IFC file, and then it closes. And I made a batch file as well that starts this script. So I just double click on the batch file, and it starts Simplebim, and it starts processing this script. And basically, and you can see here, it's running Simplebim with a minimized user interface. You can see the progress over here. So it's just showing what it's doing right now. But you don't have to look at this, what it is doing. You can just take a cup of coffee or something if you have a big model, and then Simplebim is doing the work for you. So it finished now, and then I'll restart Simplebim. And import this normalized model into Simplebim. And then we are at the last step of this demo, which is showing you what is the benefit of this normalization. So here we have the normalized, we have the timestamp of just a minute ago, and we import that one. Okay, and here if we look, for example, at our wall, and then we group them by property set, and we collapse all, we can see that here we have our properties, area, element type, section, and so on, and the script to run these sections, so it has split those objects. We have here 4 imaginary construction sections. We have the story, we have the element type, some area quantity, and so on. And if we look at the spaces, then we have some additional information added by the template, like who is the user of the space. Like these are common spaces, this is company A, company B, and so on. And what is the condition of the spaces? These are in bad condition, fair condition, and good condition. Just an imaginary data that we added with the template to the original data that we got from the designer. So now we are almost there, but the last step is to change the user interface so that you can see just the data that you want to see and be able to organize the model in many ways using this simple normalized data. So I open a workspace, which is here. Okay, and now you can see here we have our walls, and we have the sections, and we can see we have 276 square meters of wall in this section. Then we can see that on the first floor, second floor roof, and on the first floor we have these wall types. And we can say, well, if I want to see this wall type first, then I can see I have a total of 250 square meters of this type of wall, and it's divided into sections and floors like this. And then we have our spaces here. Apparently not, but you can see how this way of looking at the model, where you have names you understand and data you understand and data you can trust is vastly superior to the original model that we started with, which came directly from the architect. And this is the point of normalization. And when you think about it, you'll apply this same normalization to all of your models in all of your projects, and every time you get the same end result, and your own users inside your own company don't have to look for the information, don't have to doubt the information. It's just there and they can start using it. Okay, then we have this, now you have the basic idea, but of course, when you really start using it, you need some more help. So on our website, we have a blog which has several articles about BIM theory, the big idea behind Simplebim. Then we have a lot of great tutorial videos about the different parts, like if you want to use this, divide the building into construction sections. If you want to integrate with Excel, you can use BIM sheet and so on. You have tutorial videos about that. And then we have our support site, which has a lot of content, including how-to articles about how to do certain things. And then we have also the template tutorial, template guide on the support side. And if you still don't find what you need, then you can contact us, our email support. And when you need training, there's kind of two kinds of training. One is the basic training, which is like the step one in this demo, which is how to do things manually in the user interface, understanding all the things that you can do with Simplebim. And then the second step is the automation training, how to set up templates, how to use scripts for further efficiency in using Simplebim. And when you are convinced about this approach and want to make an organization-wide deployment, then we can help you and you can contact our services for that. And we have our great resellers. Just a reminder, you can find your local reseller and they will also help you in the same way that we would help you. For when you want to get the licenses, when you want support, when you want help, you can contact the local reseller in your local language and local business hours. And finally, if you want to see how others have used this approach, taken all the 3 steps, all the manual work, templates, automation, and made it work in really big and really impressive projects, then you can find the case studies on our website, simplebim.com. Okay, so that's my part, and now Jarmo will take over again and see if there are any questions from the audience in the Q&A.
Yes, thank you very much, Jiri. There are questions. Well, first of all, there's a question about IFC versions. Is it possible to import IFC 4 and then export it as 2 or 3? I think. Yeah.
And that's a good question, and we get it quite often, but unfortunately, no. So when you import IFC into Simplebim, you export the same version. The same applies if you cannot merge an IFC 2X3 and IFC 4 model. So you can work within the same IFC version, but not jump between them, unfortunately.
All right, thank you. Then the next one, the question goes, I'm a little bit lost at step 2. How did you open your template from the user interface?
Okay. All right. So what I did here is I just had my file explorer open, and I dragged and dropped the template from the file explorer on the 3D. So this is one way of doing it, but you can also do this. You can go and apply template, browse template file, and then go in, find it, and then open it. So this is one way. And then if you want to go even further, you can find instructions for this on our support site. You can, you can install the template, and then it appears here in the menu. And then you don't have to work, you don't have to work with the files. You can just, it's doing the same thing in the background, but you can select the template from the menu here. So these are the different ways of doing it. Okay.
Okay, I think that was the last question. So I'm going to give the audience till 10 more seconds to type in if there are any more questions. But if there are no new questions coming in, I think we are going to wrap up this session. So no new questions coming in. So hey, thank you very much everybody for joining this Simplebim webinar, and I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to contact us if you have any additional questions, or you want to hear more about some things that we unfortunately couldn't cover fully in this session. Thanks a lot for joining, and hope to see you in the next Simplebim webinars. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks all.